Welcome to a realm where personal growth meets expansive spirituality and where we're not just scratching the surface. We're diving deep, widening our perspectives, and having a darn good time doing it. This is the Enlightened Podcast, and I am your host, Jen Hamilton. You'll enjoy an infusion of motivation, empowerment, and inspiration that will resonate in every aspect of your life. Expect captivating stories, heartfelt musings, and my own personal experiences. But that's not all. I'm bringing awe-inspiring individuals to the table, so get ready to meet some remarkable souls whose wisdom and stories will leave you spellbound. No topic is off limits here. Brace yourself for raw authenticity, unfiltered vulnerability, and yes, the occasional splash of explicit language. We're delving into the realms of the esoteric, mystical, and the woo-woo, unafraid to explore the extraordinary. So if you are ready to venture beyond the surface, to explore the depths of your soul, and to awaken the magic of life, if your heart says yes, then hit that play button and let the Enlightened Podcast guide you on this remarkable expedition. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Enlightened Podcast. I'm your host, Jen, here for a Soul'o Snippet, and I want to share an experience that I had on the weekend. So it was the winter solstice here in the Southern Hemisphere in Australia, and I was in a beautiful ceremonial space for a few days, and it was beautiful because it was off-grid. I was staying at an Airbnb with some friends and just getting in touch with the land, getting in touch with myself, and it was honestly just what my soul needed. And during the ceremony that I was in, I had so much wisdom drop in, and I want to share a piece that actually came through the next day after I'd finished the ceremony. And that is when we are going through hard times, when we are going through something really rough, when we are going through something that is happening outside of us, we are not in control of that situation. We are not in control of other people and how they behave. We're not in control of Mother Nature and how the weather is. We are not in control of so many factors of our life. And although it's having an effect on us, although we are having a emotional or psychological or physiological response to something, does not mean that we're in control of the situation ever. And the piece of wisdom that dropped in for me is that when you are going through something that is outside of your control, instead of asking it or begging or wishing for it to stop, go inwards and find the strength that you need to get through it. And this is really beautiful because one of the core fears that I talk about a lot is powerlessness. So being out of control with anything that's external that's happening to us, being out of control and not having power over something beyond what we can control within ourselves. And so often we run, powerlessness in everyday things within our lives. It's something that happens very frequently, that something happens outside of our control and we have a response to that. We have anger. So say, for example, you're driving down the freeway and someone just cuts in front of you and you're singing along to Taylor Swift, having a grand old time. And then it's like, hey, you stole my piece of bitumen in front of me. How dare you? And, we have a response to that. We get really frustrated or we get really angry or we flip them the bird. Or if you're like me, you get on the horn for an extended period of time. And what we start to understand is that we have given our power away. And, at the end of the day, what's it even for? And so when we start to realize the things that we cannot control, which is anything outside of ourselves, when we're in the energetic frequency of begging it to stop or wishing it was different, or hoping that, for example, someone's behavior would change or that a situation would come to an end, what we're really saying is, I don't know how to find what I need within myself to get through this. And so when we come into that space of going, what is it that I need? Where is it I can dig deep into to find the strength that I need to be able to get through this? That is true power. That is calling your power back from the situation that you're giving your power away to and finding everything that you need inside of you. And the way in which this dropped in for me over the weekend is the ceremony that I was in a plant medicine ceremony, and I was having a bit of a rough time, to say the least. It was really quite relentless through a certain part of the process. I was going through what felt like awakening after awakening after awakening, and it just felt like I was I'm having my ass handed to me in the most loving way that, these plant medicine ceremonies do. And I remember even saying out loud, please make it stop. I'm done. I want this to be finished. And I was reminded the next day that we don't have control over certain things. And especially when we're in ceremony, we're at the mercy of the medicine that we're sitting with. And we're holding the intention that the medicine is going to take us on a journey to show us what we need. And it wasn't until the next day I realized that I didn't have control of wanting it to stop. It wasn't up to me to decide when the ceremony was going to finish. It was up to me to find the strength that I needed within to keep going through it. And it made me reflect on the times where I have begged for something to stop that was outside of my control and then got frustrated because I wasn't able to change the situation or change the person's behavior or essentially manipulate a situation to suit my own needs because of how it was making me feel. And it was such a profound piece of wisdom that dropped in, because it's like, now I feel so equipped. Instead of wanting to change a situation that I'm in that's perhaps slightly or wildly uncomfortable that's happening in my life, instead of wanting it to change, asking for the strength, going to the deep parts of my inner self or my higher self or God or the universe or whatever it is that you're aligned to call upon. Instead of wanting something to be different, asking for the strength to be able to get through it, asking for the resilience, asking for the tenacity to keep going even through the challenges, because that's where the growth is, because that's where we become strong, wise, conscious beings. That's where we find parts of ourselves that were perhaps laying dormant that we didn't even know that we were able to call upon to use. And if you've listened to episode 35 of this podcast, where I was in Paris with my mom and she broke her hip, and it was a whirlwind of an experience. And there was so much that was out of my control, out of her control, out of our family's control back home, that we had to just learn how to surrender to the process. And there were certain elements, that we couldn't make things stop. We couldn't change the situation. And I remember when I was over in Paris and I was, going out for lunch and just being in the experience of it and reminding myself the best thing I can do is dig deep and find the strength within to get through the challenges that life is presenting for me now. I can't change the situation, but I can change myself. And I think it's such a beautiful thing to be able to recognize that when we're in these tough situations, when we're in the throes of the mess that life can be at the best of times, that we have everything that we need inside of us. And that when we do have challenging times, see them as a blessing, see them as a way for you to be able to dig deep and discover more about yourself, and perhaps learn that, you did have the strength all along inside. You just had to go looking perhaps in the crevices of your soul to be able to excavate that and bring that forward and use the power of that strength to get through the situation. Because let's face it, life can be a real shit show at the best of times. We never know what's around the corner. There's so much that's out of our control. And until we realize that we don't have power over every single situation in our lives, but we do have everything inside of us that we need and that we have access to at all times, that's when we're reminded that we can get through anything. So I hope what you can take away from this episode today is that even through the challenges, even through the craziness and the wildness that life is, you have everything inside of you that you need. Dig deep for the strength. Ask God, the universe, your higher self, your inner self, whatever resonates for you. Tap into the resources that you have to find the strength to get through something instead of begging for it to stop or finish. Anyway, beautiful soul, thank you so much for joining me on this Soul'o Snippet today, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I hope you love the Enlightened podcast, and the biggest compliment you can give me is subscribing to this podcast, sharing it, and leaving a rating and review. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. My handle is @JenHamiltonOfficial, and the podcast handle is enlightened_podcast. You can also find the video version on YouTube on my channel. Just search Enlightened and don't forget to hit subscribe. Have a beautiful day and enjoy living the enlightened journey of life.